The massive doors of the Zilithian throne room had seen many visitors over the centuries. Kings, queens, ambassadors, and warriors from dozens of worlds had walked through those ancient portals. But nothing had prepared the royal court for what stepped through them that day. Commander Marcus Chen moved with a strange confidence that made every alien in the room pause their conversations. His boots clicked against the polished stone floor, in a steady rhythm that somehow sounded like distant thunder. The human was not particularly tall by galactic standards, standing only 6 feet in height. But something about his presence made the vast throne room feel smaller. Emperor Vorthok sat upon his crystal throne, his forearms resting on the armrests as his large, dark eyes studied the approaching figure. The emperor had ruled for over 300 years, and had seen representatives from every known species in the galaxy. Yet this human made him uncomfortable in a way he could not explain. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, stopping exactly 20 paces from the throne. He did not bow deeply like other visitors. Instead, he gave a simple nod of his head. "I am Commander Marcus Chen of the Terran Defense Force." A ripple of whispers spread through the courtiers. The human's voice was calm, but there was something underneath it. Something that made the hair-like sensors on the back of every Zilithian's neck stand up. It was not aggression, exactly. It was more like controlled power. Like a storm, waiting to break. General Krex, the Emperor's military advisor, stepped forward. His massive frame towered over the human, and his 4 muscled arms were designed for crushing enemies. "Human," he growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You stand before the Emperor of the Zilithian Empire. Show proper respect." Marcus looked up at the 8-foot-tall general without flinching. His brown eyes met Krex's yellow ones, and something passed between them. The general had expected fear, maybe nervousness. Instead, he saw something that made him take a small step back. The human's eyes held the calm certainty of someone who had faced death so many times that threats no longer had any meaning. "I mean no disrespect, General," Marcus replied evenly. "On Earth, we show respect through our actions, not through elaborate ceremonies." Emperor Vorthok leaned forward on his throne. The human's words were interesting, but it was his manner that caught the Emperor's attention. Every other species in the galaxy had either tried to intimidate the Zilithians with shows of force or had groveled for their favor. This human did neither. He simply stood there, completely at ease, as if he were among friends rather than in a room full of beings who could order his death with a gesture. "Tell me, Commander Chen," the Emperor said, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of rule. "What brings a representative of this Earth to my throne room? Your species is unknown to us. Your world does not appear on any of our star charts." Marcus nodded slightly. "That's because we prefer to stay hidden, Your Majesty. Until now, we've had no reason to reveal ourselves to the galaxy." "Hidden?" Lady Sira, the Emperor's chief advisor, spoke up from her position near the throne. Her elegant purple skin seemed to shimmer as she moved. "No species can hide from our deep space scanners. We have mapped every inhabited world in this sector." "Have you?" Marcus asked, and there was something almost like amusement in his voice. "Tell me, Lady Sarah, how many ships do you think are in orbit around your planet right now?" The question caught everyone off guard. General Krex immediately activated his wrist communicator. "Control, this is General Krex. Give me a full orbital scan report." The response came back within moments, and the confusion in the controller's voice was clear. "We're showing 17 ships in high orbit. All of them are. They're completely invisible to our visual scanners. We can only detect them through gravitational distortion." The throne room fell silent. The Zilithian Empire had the most advanced detection systems in the galaxy. Nothing could hide from their sensors. Nothing. Marcus remained perfectly calm as chaos erupted around him. Courtiers were shouting questions, military officers were demanding explanations, and the Emperor himself looked shaken for the first time in decades. "Impossible," General Krex snarled, turning back to face the human. No species has cloaking technology that advanced. Even the Phantom fleet of Arcturus can only maintain invisibility for short periods. The Phantom fleet, Marcus said, and now there was definitely amusement in his voice. We've been watching their operations for about 50 years. Impressive, but their cloaking systems have some significant weaknesses. You've been watching? Emperor Vorthak's voice was sharp now. The Phantom Fleet was a legendary group of pirates and mercenaries that had terrorized the Outer Rim for centuries. They were ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. The idea that anyone had been casually observing them was almost insulting. "We watch everything, Your Majesty," Marcus replied simply. "It's what humans do. We watch, we learn, and we prepare." Lady Sarah stepped closer, her scientific curiosity overcoming her diplomatic training. "You said 17 ships. What kind of vessels are they? Exploration ships? Diplomatic escorts?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Dreadnoughts. Mostly. A few carriers. One ship that we call a planet cracker, though I hope we won't need to use it." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. A planet cracker was exactly what it sounded like. A weapon capable of destroying entire worlds. Only 3 species in the galaxy were known to possess such weapons. And they were all ancient civilizations, with millions of years of technological development behind them. "You're lying," General Krex said, but his voice lacked conviction. No newly discovered species could possess weapons of that magnitude. Marcus shrugged, a very human gesture that somehow conveyed both acceptance and mild amusement. "You're welcome to test that theory, General. Though I should mention that our planet cracker isn't like the ones built by the elder races. Theirs require massive energy buildup and can be detected hours before firing." Hours? Well, let's just say the asteroid belt in the Sol system didn't always exist. The implication hit the room like a physical blow. The human was claiming that his species had destroyed one of their own planets to create weapons. Even the most warlike races in the galaxy avoided such destruction within their home systems. Emperor Vorthak found his voice again. "Commander Chen, you speak of weapons and fleets, but you came here alone. If your species is as powerful as you claim, why send a single representative?" Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the throne room, and that smile sent shivers through every observer. It was not cruel or threatening. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that others would find disturbing. "Because, Your Majesty, one human is usually enough." The silence that followed was deafening. In those few words, Marcus had made a claim that would have sounded like boastful nonsense from any other species. But something in his manner, in the absolute confidence of his voice, made it sound like a simple statement of fact. General Krex's military mind was racing. He had commanded armies across dozens of worlds. He had fought against every major species in the galaxy. He knew how to read enemies, how to gauge their capabilities and intentions. Everything about this human suggested someone who had seen combat, real combat, against opponents that would terrify seasoned warriors. "What do you want from us?" the Emperor asked finally. "Nothing, actually," Marcus replied, and the answer surprised everyone in the room. "We're not here to conquer or to make demands. We're here to offer you a choice." "What kind of choice?" Lady Sarah asked. Marcus looked around the throne room, taking in the faces of the courtiers, the military officers, the advisors, and diplomats. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made everyone lean forward to listen. "The galaxy is about to change, Your Majesty. Something is coming from the void between galaxies, something that makes the burning plague look like a minor inconvenience. The elder races know about it. They've been preparing for centuries, building their defenses and choosing which younger species to protect." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Humanity has also been preparing, but in our own way. We've been watching all of you, studying your strengths and weaknesses, determining who might be worth saving when the time comes." Emperor Vorthak felt a chill run down his spine. The burning plague had swept through the galaxy 1,000 years ago, consuming entire star systems before finally burning itself out. The idea that something worse was coming was almost too terrible to contemplate. "And have we been found worthy?" the Emperor asked. Marcus tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. "That depends on what you do in the next few minutes, Your Majesty." The throne room erupted again. Courtiers were demanding explanations. Military officers were calling for the humans' arrest. And the Emperor was trying to restore order. Through it all, Marcus stood perfectly still, watching everything with those calm, calculating eyes. When the noise finally died down, Marcus spoke again. "I know this is difficult to accept. You've thought of yourselves as one of the dominant powers in the galaxy. Your empire spans hundreds of systems. Your fleets are among the largest and most advanced known to galactic civilization." His voice remained conversational, almost friendly. But his next words changed everything. "But you've never faced anything like what's coming. And you've certainly never faced anything like humanity." General Krex had heard enough. The humans' claims were beyond belief, and his casual manner in the face of imperial power was an insult that could not be tolerated. With a roar that shook the crystal windows of the throne room, the general launched himself forward, all four arms reaching for the small figure before the throne. What happened next would be talked about in the imperial court for generations. Marcus moved like liquid lightning. One moment he was standing calmly before the Emperor. The next he was behind General Krex, who was now lying face down on the polished floor, with his four arms twisted behind his back in a position that should have been anatomically impossible. The human hadn't drawn a weapon, hadn't called for help, hadn't even raised his voice. "General," Marcus said conversationally, as if he were discussing the weather rather than restraining a warrior who could bench press a small spacecraft. "I appreciate the test, but I'm trying to have a conversation with your Emperor." Krex struggled against the hold, his muscles straining with enough force to crack stone. The human didn't seem to be exerting any effort at all. It was like watching someone try to escape from solid steel. "Release him," Emperor Vorthok commanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. He had just witnessed something that challenged everything he thought he knew about combat and physics. Marcus immediately let go and stepped back, offering his hand to help the general up. Krex stared at the offered hand for a moment, before grudgingly accepting it. As he was pulled to his feet, he felt the human's strength through that simple gesture. It was like being lifted by a mechanical crane. "How?" was all Krex could manage to say. "Gravity," Marcus replied simply. "Most species in the galaxy evolved on worlds with light gravity compared to Earth. You're strong, General. Probably stronger than any human in raw muscle power. But we grew up fighting to take every step, lifting weights just to stand upright. When we move in your gravity, we're basically superhuman by your standards." Lady Sierra was frantically making calculations on her portable computer. "Earth's gravity would have to be at least 3 times standard for that to be possible," she muttered. "No advanced species could evolve under those conditions. The energy requirements alone." "Oh, Potter, 3.5 times standard, actually," Marcus corrected. "And you're right about the energy requirements. That's why humans eat so much compared to other species. It's also why we're so good at logistics and supply chain management. When you need massive amounts of food and resources just to survive, you get very efficient at acquiring and distributing them." Emperor Vorthok was beginning to understand that everything about this encounter was wrong. This human wasn't just strong or fast, he was casually revealing information that suggested his species had advantages that no one had anticipated. "You said something was coming from the void," the Emperor said, deciding to focus on the larger threat, rather than the smaller one standing in his throne room. "What exactly are we facing?" Marcus's expression grew serious. "Have you ever wondered why the elder races suddenly stopped expanding their territories about 1,000 years ago? Why beings who had spent millions of years conquering and exploring suddenly became content to guard their borders?" "The burning plague," Lady Sarah answered immediately. "It taught everyone the dangers of unchecked expansion. The burning plague was just a scout, Marcus said quietly. A probe sent ahead to test the galaxy's defenses and catalog its inhabitants. The throne room fell silent again. The burning plague had consumed 17 star systems and billions of lives before finally burning itself out. The idea that it had been merely a reconnaissance mission was almost incomprehensible. "That's impossible," General Krex said, though his voice lacked conviction. The plague was a natural phenomenon, a runaway chain reaction of stellar explosions. Marcus shook his head. "Natural phenomena don't move in coordinated patterns, General. They don't systematically target the most heavily defended systems while avoiding primitive worlds. And they certainly don't transmit data back to their point of origin before self-destructing." "Data?" Emperor Vorthak leaned forward. "What kind of data? Population centers? Military capabilities? Industrial capacity? Resource distribution? Genetic samples?" Marcus's voice was grim. "Everything they would need to plan an invasion." Lady Sira looked up from her computer with wide eyes. "The plague samples. Every major civilization kept samples for study. If they were actually gathering genetic information, then they know exactly how to build weapons specifically designed to target each species." Marcus finished. "Biological weapons, energy frequencies that disrupt your neural patterns, chemical compounds that break down your cellular structure. They've had 1,000 years to prepare personalized extinction methods for every race in the galaxy." The implications were staggering. The assembled courtiers began whispering among themselves, and several were clearly calculating the odds of their own survival. "But you humans weren't here 1,000 years ago," General Krex pointed out. "How do you know all this?" "Because," Marcus smiled grimly, "because we caught one of their scouts before it could self-destruct, and because we've been dealing with beings from that void for longer than you might think." He reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device that looked like nothing more than a metallic cube. When he activated it, a holographic display filled the center of the throne room. The image showed Earth, but not as it appeared to galactic surveys. This Earth was surrounded by massive orbital installations, weapons platforms, and fleets of ships that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. But more shocking was what lay beyond Earth's system. "This is the Oort Cloud Defense Grid," Marcus explained as the image expanded. 16,000 automated weapons platforms, each one capable of sterilizing a planet. Beyond that, the Kuiper Barrier, CO, a wall of energy that can detect and destroy anything approaching our system faster than light. The display zoomed out further, showing installations that stretched across light years of space. "And beyond that," Marcus continued, "the Deep Space Monitor Network. Sensors that can detect gravitational anomalies from 50,000 light-years away. We've been watching the approaches to this galaxy for 800 years." Emperor Vorthak stared at the display in stunned silence. The defensive network surrounding the human homeworld was beyond anything he had imagined possible. It would have taken the entire galactic civilization working together for centuries to build something like it. "How many humans are there?" he asked finally. "About 12 billion on Earth itself," Marcus replied. "Maybe 8 billion more spread across our colonies." 20 billion, Lady Sarah whispered. "That's barely a large city by galactic standards. How do you maintain all those installations?" "Automation, mostly. But also because we think differently about warfare than most species." Marcus deactivated the display and put the device away. "Most civilizations build their defenses around protecting what they have. Humans build our defenses around destroying what threatens us." General Krex was studying the human with new eyes. "Those 17 ships in orbit, how heavily armed are they? Each dreadnought carries enough firepower to glass a continental surface. The carriers have fighter squadrons that could take on your entire Imperial fleet." "The planet cracker." Marcus paused. "Let's just say that if I activate it, this system will have a very pretty new nebula where your homeworld used to be." "You're threatening us," the Emperor said. "No, Your Majesty. I'm explaining our capabilities so you can make an informed decision about what comes next." "Which is?" Marcus looked around the throne room, meeting the eyes of courtiers, military officers, and advisors. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute certainty. In approximately 18 months, a fleet will emerge from the void between galaxies. Based on our analysis of their scout probes, we estimate it will contain roughly 50 million ships. Each ship will be specifically designed to counter the defenses and capabilities of the species they've been studying. He let that sink in for a moment. The elder races know this. They've been preparing their strongest systems for siege warfare. They'll probably survive, though not without massive casualties. The younger civilizations. Marcus shrugged. Most won't last a week. Marcus shrugged. Most won't last a week. And humanity's plan? Lady Sira asked. Marcus's smile returned, and it was even more unsettling than before. We're not planning to survive the invasion, Lady Sira. We're planning to win it. Impossible, General Krex said automatically. No single species could stand against those numbers. You're right, Marcus agreed. No single species could. That's why we need allies. Emperor Vorthak was beginning to understand. You're recruiting. Building a coalition. We're offering partnerships to species that show promise. The Zilithian Empire has impressive industrial capacity, decent military technology, and most importantly, you're not afraid to fight against long odds. What makes you think we'll agree to help you? Marcus's expression grew serious. Because, Your Majesty, I haven't told you the worst part yet. The throne room seemed to grow colder. The beings coming from the void don't just want to conquer the galaxy, they want to consume it. Every star, every planet, every living thing. They're not invaders, looking for new territory. They're harvesters. Lady Sira's computer slipped from her nerveless fingers. You're saying they want to destroy everything? Everything, Marcus confirmed. When they're done, this galaxy will be empty space and cosmic dust. They'll move on to the next one. Then the next. Consuming entire universes as they go. General Krex found his voice. How do we fight something like that? Marcus looked at him with something that might have been approval. The same way humans have always fought. Impossible. Odds. General. We cheat. Emperor Vorthak had ruled for over 3 centuries. But he had never faced a decision like this. The human's words painted a picture of cosmic horror that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. Yet something in Marcus's manner convinced him that every impossible claim was true. Explain this cheating, the Emperor demanded. Marcus activated his device again, but this time the holographic display showed star charts instead of defensive installations. Red markers indicated systems throughout the galaxy. Thousands of them, all pulsing in a synchronized pattern. For the past 800 years, humans have been seeding the galaxy with something we call seeds of tomorrow, Marcus began. They look like ordinary asteroids. Maybe unusual meteors. Nothing worth a second glance. General Krex studied the display with a military eye. How many seeds? 47,000. Deployed to strategic locations across every inhabited system in the galaxy. Marcus pointed to several markers near Zilithian space. Including yours. 47,000. 47,000. Including yours, Lady Sira gasped. You've been placing weapons in our systems without permission? That's an act of war. They're not weapons, Marcus corrected. Not exactly. Each seed contains a quantum manufacturing facility, raw materials, and construction templates. When activated, they can build defensive platforms, supply depots, repair facilities, or evacuation ships depending on what's needed. The implications were staggering. The humans had essentially placed infrastructure throughout the galaxy, ready to support a war effort on a scale never before imagined. The invaders will expect to face scattered resistance from individual civilizations, Marcus continued. Instead, they'll find a unified defense grid spanning the entire galaxy, with supply lines and reinforcements appearing wherever they're needed. Emperor Vorthak was beginning to see the genius of the plan. You've turned the galaxy into a fortress. Better than that. We've turned it into a trap. Marcus's smile was sharp now. The invaders know how to fight individual species. They've been studying you for 1,000 years, learning your tactics, your weaknesses, your technological capabilities. But they haven't been studying humanity, and they certainly haven't been studying what happens when humans coordinate the defenses of dozens of species working together. What makes you think your coordination will be effective? General Krex asked. Most species can barely work together on trade agreements, let alone military operations. Because humans don't just study warfare, General. We study people. We know how to bring out the best in our allies, and how to cover for their weaknesses. Marcus gestured toward the display. The Arcanian Federation has the best shield technology in the galaxy, but they're terrible at offensive operations. The Korath Empire builds devastating weapons, but their logistics are hopeless. The Stellar Confederation has incredible pilots, but outdated ships. The display shifted to show tactical formations that combine the strengths of multiple species while minimizing their weaknesses. Put them together under human coordination, and you get something stronger than the sum of its parts. Marcus continued. Arcanian shields, protecting Korath weapons, carried by Confederation pilots, supplied by human logistics networks. Lady Sira was frantically taking notes. The mathematical complexity of coordinating that many different technologies and tactical doctrines, it would require computational power beyond anything in the galaxy. Which brings us to humanity's other advantage, Marcus said. We didn't evolve as individuals. We evolved as a collective intelligence. The statement seemed to hang in the air like a physical presence. What does that mean? Emperor Vorthak asked. Most species develop intelligence in single minds that work independently, Marcus explained. Humans developed something different. Our individual intelligence is actually fairly average by galactic standards. But when we work together, we create a kind of group consciousness that can solve problems no individual mind could handle. He activated another function on his device, and suddenly the throne room was filled with voices. Hundreds of them, all speaking at once, in perfect harmony. Commander Chen, this is Operation Central. We're monitoring your conversation and running probability analyses on 47 different negotiation outcomes. Chen, this is strategic planning. We've identified 3 potential weak points in Zilithian military doctrine that we can help strengthen. Commander, this is Intelligence Division. We've been tracking Zilithian communications for the past 6 hours and recommend focusing on their concern about civilian evacuation procedures. Marcus shut off the communication link, and the throne room fell silent. At this moment, he said calmly, there are approximately 8,000 humans working together to optimize this conversation. They're analyzing every word, every gesture, every physiological response from everyone in this room. They're calculating the best possible outcome and feeding suggestions directly into my neural implant. General Krex took an involuntary step backward. The idea of facing a species that thought collectively was more terrifying than any weapon. That's why one human is usually enough, Marcus continued. Because one human has access to the accumulated knowledge and intelligence of the entire species. Emperor Vorthak felt a chill run down his spine. Are you reading our minds? No, but we don't need to. Humans have been studying body language, vocal patterns, and behavioral psychology for thousands of years. We can predict your responses with about 97% accuracy just by observing you. Lady Sarah looked up from her computer with a mixture of fascination and fear. The strategic implications. If humans can coordinate multiple species while predicting enemy responses, now you're beginning to understand, Marcus said with approval. The invaders expect to face chaos and confusion. Instead, they'll find organized resistance that anticipates their every move. But what if we refuse to join this alliance? The Emperor asked. Marcus's expression grew sad. Then in 18 months, the Zilithian Empire will cease to exist. The invaders will arrive, Study your defenses for approximately 6 hours. Then deploy species-specific weapons designed to exterminate every living thing in your territory. The brutal honesty was somehow more convincing than any threat could have been. But if we agree, General Krex said slowly, what exactly are you asking us to do? 3 things, Marcus replied. First, allow us to activate the seeds in your territory and begin construction of defensive installations. Second, integrate your military forces with our command structure. Third, begin evacuating your civilian population to safer systems. Evacuate? Emperor Vorthak was shocked. You want us to abandon our homeworld? Temporarily. The initial battles are going to be devastating, Your Majesty. We can't protect everyone while simultaneously fighting a war. But once we've defeated the invasion fleet, everyone can return home. You sound very confident about victory, Lady Sarah observed. Marcus's smile returned, and this time it was genuinely warm. Humans have been fighting impossible odds since we first climbed down from the trees. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, plagues, wars, and our own stupidity. We've never faced extinction without finding a way to not just survive, but thrive. He looked around the throne room, meeting the eyes of everyone present. The beings coming from the void are powerful, numerous, and utterly ruthless. But they made one critical mistake. They gave us 1,000 years to prepare, and they never studied the one species that actually enjoys being outnumbered. General Krex found himself nodding. There was something infectious about the human's confidence, a certainty that made impossible things seem achievable. What happens after the war? Emperor Vorthak asked. That depends on what we all decide together, Marcus replied. Humans have no interest in ruling a galactic empire. We prefer to explore and learn, rather than conquer and control. But we'll need to maintain the alliance structure to prevent future invasions. A galactic confederation, Lady Sarah breathed. With humans as coordinators, rather than rulers. Something like that. The details can wait until after we've survived the next 18 months. Emperor Vorthak stood from his throne and walked down to stand before the human. Marcus was still shorter than the Emperor, still outnumbered by thousands, still technically at the mercy of an alien court that could order his death. But somehow, the Emperor felt like he was the one asking for help. Commander Marcus Chen, the Emperor said formally. The Zilithian Empire accepts your alliance. What do you need from us? Marcus smiled and extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Just trust us to keep our promises, Your Majesty. We'll handle the rest. As the Emperor shook the human's hand, alarms began sounding throughout the palace. Guard officers rushed into the throne room with reports of massive ships appearing in orbit, defensive platforms materializing from nothing, and construction beginning on installations that defied current understanding of physics. The seeds are already activating? General Krex asked in amazement. We started the process the moment your Emperor agreed to the alliance, Marcus replied. In about 6 hours, this system will have defensive capabilities that rival anything the elder races have built. In 6 days, it will be stronger than any military installation in galactic history. And the other species? The Arcanian Federation agreed to join us yesterday. The Korath Empire signed on this morning. We're meeting with the Stellar Confederation tomorrow. Marcus's expression grew serious again. By the time the invasion fleet arrives, they won't be facing a collection of separate civilizations. They'll be facing something that has never existed before in galactic history. Which is, Marcus looked out through the crystal windows of the throne room, where the first human defensive platforms were already taking shape in the sky above the capital city. A galaxy that fights back. Emperor Vorthak felt a strange sensation that he had never experienced before in his long life. For the first time since receiving reports of mysterious ships appearing throughout his territory, he felt hope. The human warrior who had walked into his throne room had done more than forge an alliance. He had transformed the Zilithian Empire from a collection of scattered worlds into part of something larger and stronger than anyone had imagined possible. As Marcus prepared to leave for his next meeting, General Krex stepped forward. Commander, I have one more question. Yes, General? When the invasion begins, where will you be fighting? Marcus paused at the threshold of the great doors and looked back with that unsettling smile. Everywhere, General. That's what humans do. And with that, he walked out of the throne room, leaving behind an empire that would never be the same, and carrying with him the fate of an entire galaxy.